Thanks for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with The Advocate, the Acadiana Advocate, and The Advocate at Large, our local source of journalism, bringing us the news every day. And we are glad to bring you the audio version, the reading of that news, Monday through Friday between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. And this morning we have a special treat. Our once a week, usually volunteer reader, Danon. Danon, how are you this morning?
I'm doing really well, Matt. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well as well, and I'm really glad to hear your voice and hear you're back. I hope you had good travels last week, and
Thank you.
And that you're doing well, and I look forward to listening to the news. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Acadiana. It is June 17th, 2020, and I'm here to read the news for you this morning. My name is Danon, and we are jumping in. Positive test rates are climbing in Lafayette by Ben Myers. Mayor President Josh Guillory on Tuesday attributed recent increases in Lafayette Parish coronavirus cases to expanded testing, but state data does not support that explanation, and a state health official, whom Guillory cited in his statement, said the spike is tied to our behavior. Lafayette hospitals, meanwhile, reported an increase in coronavirus patients starting last week, reversing weeks of steady declines. There is clearly something happening in this parish over the last couple of weeks, and I do believe it's tied to our behavior and our complacency in thinking that moving to phase 2 means we are not at risk anymore, said Tina Stefanski, the state health administrator for a 7-parish region that includes Lafayette. Stefanski was referring to Governor John Bel Edwards instituting his phase 2 reopening of the state's economy on June 5th. Cases started increasing again in Lafayette Parish in the middle of May, weeks before phase 2, when the 7-day rolling average in newly reported cases suddenly doubled in the space of a week. It has continued to rise, and the rolling averages throughout past week were at levels not seen since early April. There were 293 cases reported in the 2 weeks before June 13, compared with 310 cases reported from March 31 to April 13th. The positive test rate has risen steadily as well. Newly reported cases over the past 21 days represent 6% of newly reported tests. That is an increase from 3.8% during the previous 3-week period. The overall positive rate has gradually increased by a margin of 15% since May 22. Guillory, without citing any data, said the positive testing rate in Lafayette Parish remains relatively stable. He also said his medical advisory team, which includes Stefanski, is in agreement that we are seeing significantly more cases because the level of testing in our parish has increased substantially. Guillory's statement did not mention any other reason for the increase in cases. His spokesman did not respond to a follow-up query noting the steady increase in the positive test rate and requesting data underlying his assertions. Stefanski agreed that testing has expanded, but she said testing capacity is not the only reason for the rise in cases. Excuse me. I think the public should be concerned and not complacent in thinking that because we are increasing in testing, we are seeing this increase in numbers. There is clearly community spread, Stefanski said. We are seeing clusters of individuals at work sites. We are seeing spread within households and then just spread within the community in general. All of that is concerning. The expansion in testing is hard to track because the state on June 13 and again on Tuesday reported unusually large numbers of tests resulting from months-old backlogs. Huge increases in total tests were reported on June 13 and Tuesday, accompanied by below-average case numbers when taken as a percentage of tests. Yet those totals did not significantly affect The overall positive test rate, which on Tuesday remained at 5.1%, the same as it was on June 11th. Excuse me. That is a 15% increase from May 22, when the positive rate was at its lowest point. The positive rate eclipsed 5% on June 7 for the first time in 33 days. It has remained above 5% for 9 of the past 10 days, including the past 7 days in a row. Stavansky agreed with Guillory's characterization of the positive rate as stable, but she said this refers to the fact that it remains below 10%, a common national standard for adequate testing and manageable spread. As for the steady rise since May 22, Stavansky said continued uncertainty over backlogs muddies the recent data and said more attention should be given to the raw case counts. Governor John Bel Edwards and the other state officials have said the positive test rate is important when considering case counts as a way to factor in expanded testing. Whether it's the result of increased access to testing or not, those are significant increases. The numbers are real, Stefanski said. If we continue to increase at this level, it certainly seems as though we're going to have a problem in this parish. The new cases are beginning to show up in Lafayette area hospitals. Lafayette General Health on Tuesday was treating 33 confirmed coronavirus inpatients across its system, with 12 other suspected patients awaiting test results, according to spokeswoman Patricia Thompson. Although that reversed a recent plateau in the low 20s as recently as last week, it is still less than half the number of patients around Easter at the peak of the crisis. A spokeswoman for Our Lady of Lourdes Regional Medical Center also confirmed an uptick since last week with 23 current coronavirus patients, but she did not provide further details. We are hopeful the numbers will stabilize again, Thompson said. It's hard to predict if this is looking like it will be another huge spike or if it's just a slight increase that will once again stabilize. Nobody has the answer to that right now. Excuse me, I'm still waking up this morning, it looks like. Okay, our next story. Remove Mouton by Claire Taylor. The May 25 killing of George Floyd by a white police officer in Minneapolis, the ensuing nationwide protests, and the removal of monuments to the Confederacy by protesters and officials is renewing interest in the removal of Lafayette's statue of Confederate General Alfred Mouton. An online petition, Take Down the General Mouton Statue, by the group Move the Mindset, passed its 11,000 signature goal Tuesday morning. At 7 p.m., it was 3 signatures short of its extended goal of 12,000. Move the Mindset's Fred Prejean said eventually the group plans to present the petition to the Lafayette City Council, calling for it to move the statue from its prominent place on public-owned land at the intersection of Jefferson Street and Lee Avenue downtown. That, he said, is assuming the group wins its legal battle to have a 1980 injunction nullified. The council, Prejean said, has been using the injunction to do nothing. Prejean and 14 others filed documents in July to intervene in a 1980 lawsuit in 15th Judicial District Court that resulted in a permanent injunction stopping city officials from moving the Mouton statue. A hearing, he said, is set for August 17th before Judge David Smith. The monument was unveiled on April 8, 1922, 58 years after Mouton died of injuries from the Battle of Mansfield, and amid the Jim Crow era of the oppression of Black residents. It was paid for by the Mouton chapter of the United Daughters of the Confederacy and donated to the city. Mouton was the son of the state's 9th governor. He was born in Opelousas, attended the U.S. Military Academy in West Point, and later returned to Lafayette, where he became a landowner and slaveholder and supported the parish's laws limiting the assembly of Black people and their ability to move around. The dedication of the Mouton statue 98 years ago was a well-attended event. Governor John Parker, Catholic Bishop Jules Jean Mard, and the Reverend W. Turlings of St. John Cathedral participated, according to accounts published in the April 10, 1922 Daily Advertiser. Mayor Robert Mouton even asked stores to close for several hours in recognition of the event. The Lafayette Concert Band opened the ceremony with its rendition of Dixie, a song some consider a ballad of the Confederacy, the newspaper reported. Mrs. Peter Urey of Shreveport, former state head of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, speaking at the unveiling, said, "In honoring General Mouton, we are honoring ourselves, for we are today perpetuating the very best that has been achieved by our society, by our great and truly noble Southern race." When Mayor Kenny Bowen in 1980 proposed moving the statue to a spot near a bus stop in front of the new City Hall at the corner of University Avenue and St. Landry Street, the Daughters of the Confederacy objected, as did the City Council. Despite admitting in minutes from a United Daughters committee meeting that it had no standing in the matter, the group filed for and obtained an injunction that solidified for the next 40 years the statue's presence in downtown Lafayette. For Prejean and many residents, Black and white, the statue's prominent placement at an entry in downtown on public land maintained by the tax dollars is an insult and a continuation of the oppressive Jim Crow era. Several residents, including Kenneth Broussard, have held silent protests in the shadow of the Mouton statue in recent weeks. At Tuesday's Lafayette Parish Council meeting, Broussard said the killings of Floyd and others triggered gut-wrenching grief and outrage in him. On Tuesday, he asked the council to move the racist idol to white supremacy from in front of City Hall. At 6 p.m. Friday, residents are invited to join Move the Mindset and others at the Mouton statue, 735 Jefferson Street, for a Juneteenth rally commemorating the end of slavery. A Juneteenth celebration also will be held in Lafayette at 4 p.m. Saturday at Gethsemane Church on Pinhook Road. Excuse me. Live music now okay in Louisiana under Phase 2 by Claire Taylor. Live music will now be allowed in Louisiana bars and clubs under a change to the state's Phase 2 reopening guidelines. This marks the first time since mid-March bars and clubs can offer live music legally. The change does not automatically permit all venues to host live music, however. Business owners must apply to the state fire marshal's office for approval in conjunction with the Louisiana Department of Health. They also must meet certain safety criteria. Lafayette Parish officials weren't enforcing the restrictions anyway, despite complaints about at least one indoor club and restaurant having live bands on weekends in May. In a June 5th letter to Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry, State Fire Marshal Butch Browning wrote that enforcing the governor's ban on live music indoors could violate the state constitution. Bars and clubs were closed in mid-March under orders by Governor John Bel Edwards in an effort to slow the spread of the coronavirus. Bars that serve food were allowed to reopen with limited capacity May 15th under Phase 1 of the governor's plan. All bars were allowed to open with limited capacity June 5th, but there was a ban on live music indoors. Contacted June 5 for comment about Landry's written opinion, the governor's deputy chief of staff for communications, Christina Stevens, wrote that the administration was looking at ways to allow live music to return based on research and best practices in other areas, states, and countries, which could be reflected in future guidance we issue. That new guidance, titled Phase 2A and prepared by the governor's office, Louisiana Department of Health and State Fire Marshal's office, was issued Friday, according to a document provided by Ashley Rodrigue, Public Affairs Director of State Fire Marshal's office. It is available at opensafely.la.gov. Anyone signed up to receive updates via that link should have automatically received the Phase 2 guidance. It does not appear the change was publicized. The Fire Marshal's office has been actively engaged with businesses that wanted indoor music performances and is also communicating with them directly, Stevens wrote Tuesday in an email to the Acadiana Advocate. Indoor live entertainment venues, including those wanting to host bands and karaoke under Phase 2A, may submit a written request that addresses safety measures, including whether the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system exchanges the air at least 6 times an hour, at least 12 feet separate the audience and performance. The performers, all performers follow social distancing measures, and management offers face mask and temperature checks to all attendees. Ernest Ledger, Deputy Commissioner with the Louisiana Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, said his office logs all complaints about businesses not complying with the governor's reopening guidelines and sends the complaints to the Fire Marshal's office. At times during Phase 1 of reopening, Ledger said, ATC worked with Louisiana State Police and local law enforcement agencies to make sure those with ATC permits complied with the governor's guidelines. Now, he said, ATC defers to the Fire Marshal's office, which is working with the health department on public safety matters. With respect to the COVID-19 response and safety requirements with social distancing and health concerns, the appropriate oversee of what can be done and can't be done is the state Fire Marshal's office, Ledger said Tuesday. Lafayette Mayor President Josh Guillory, an attorney, requested the written opinion from Landry. He wrote that he believed the governor's restrictions on live indoor entertainment was meant for large arenas, not bars. Guillory's administration ordered the Lafayette Fire Department not to enforce the restriction after complaints were made about several Lafayette bars and venues with live bands indoors and outdoors. Okay, Homegrown pop-up market is coming to Macomb VZ Cultural District. Homegrown pop-up market, presented by the Macomb VZ neighborhood, is a family-friendly monthly community pop-up market happening every third Saturday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., featuring local businesses and artists. On Saturday, June 20th, we're bringing fresh veggies, vendors, and ideas to the neighborhood. The Macomb VZ neighborhood and its friends will host vendor booths, live music, games, and activities for all. The event will be held from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Macomb VZ Community House at 419 12th Street at the intersection of 12th and South Magnolia Street in Lafayette. Admission is free, and this event is open to the public. Brought to you in coordination with the Macomb VC neighborhood, Veggies on the Go Health Utarian, and the Northside Vegan. Food and beverages will be available on site for purchase. Iberia Bank merger gets federal approval by Adam Daigle. Lafayette-based Iberia Bank and First Horizon Bank got regulatory approval from the Federal Reserve System Board of Governors. The merger, which should be complete July 1st, pending customary closing conditions, makes the combined company one of the largest financial services company in the South and one of the top 25 banks in the country in deposits. Iberia Bank Corporation shareholders in April approved an acquisition of the company by First Horizon National Corp., a similarly sized bank headquartered in Memphis, Tennessee. The merger is expected to be complete July 1st, pending customary closing conditions. Today's approval represents an important milestone as we join forces to create a leading regional financial services company dedicated to enriching the lives of our clients, associates, and communities, said Daryl Bird, President and CEO of Iberia Bank. By aligning our relationship-oriented cultures, we will continue to transform the way we do business to meet clients' needs in this dynamic environment and provide a great place to work for our associates. Clients will continue to be served through their respective branches, websites, mobile apps, financial advisors, and relationship managers until systems are integrated. Iberia Bank will adopt the First Horizon name next year following operating systems conversion. Under the terms of the merger agreement, Iberia Bank shareholders will receive Iberia Bank shareholders will receive 4.584 shares of First Horizon for each Iberia Bank share they own. After closing, approximately 56% of the combined company will be held by legacy First Horizon shareholders, and approximately 44% will be held by legacy Iberia Bank shareholders. 2020 Sugarcane Festival canceled by Ken Stickney. The threat of COVID-19 has led to the cancellation of another signature tourism event in Iberia Parish. The Louisiana Sugarcane Festival and Fair Association said in a letter released on Facebook recently and sent to the Acadiana Advocate on Tuesday that this year's 79th festival, scheduled for September 24th through the 27th, won't happen. The hardships imposed upon our farmers and the many people involved from around the state of Louisiana cannot be overlooked, read the letter signed by the association's board of directors. Financial and health issues due to the COVID-19 virus must be considered in these unprecedented times. Festival spokeswoman Lisa Douay-Lourdes said the pandemic posed many myriad hardships on festival coordinators and pose potential health threats that include a second wave of the novel coronavirus in the fall. Parishes could not host beauty pageants that would have sent competitors to the Sugarcane Festival pageant, she said, which kept the organization from selecting its own queen. That affected other festival events. Excuse me. Sponsorships were uncertain, and ultimately, she said, the totality of problems became insurmountable. The annual festival, held downtown, typically includes parades, an art show, cooking contests, a flower show, and more. There have been quite a few disappointed folks, Lord said. Previously, the festival was canceled only during World War II and was rescheduled because of Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Fran Thibodeau, director of Iberia Parish Convention and Visitors Bureau, said the Sugarcane Festival is one of the parish's largest tourism events. But there is hope that the World Championship Gumbo Cook-Off, organized by the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce, may occur as scheduled October 10 through 11. She said organizers of most of the fall events in Iberia are waiting for state clarification about phase 3 in the COVID-19 reopening plan. Those directions should be revealed July 1st. Janet Falk Gonzalez, Chamber President and CEO, said plans are moving forward for the 31st annual cook-off event, although the Chamber knows it cannot generate the attendance numbers it has enjoyed in the past. She said the cook-off generates about 20,000 to 25,000 participants. We are still optimistic, she said, as she awaited state guidelines for public events. It's difficult to be a planner when you have no information. She said the Gumbo Cook-Off, held in New Iberia's historic district, generally pulls visitors from around the country and world. Thibodeau said the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which reopened to the public last week, has been fielding calls from out-of-town people who are interested in tourism sites in the parish. We are getting calls. The phone is ringing, she said. People want to travel. KPEL taps Bernadette Lee for new radio show by Megan Wyatt. Bernadette Lee, a familiar local radio personality normally heard in the morning, debuted her new afternoon talk show Monday on KPEL 96.5 FM. Up Close with Bernadette Lee has taken over the popular afternoon time slot on News Talk 96.5 that, until last week, was filled by Carol Ross and her show, The Ross Report. Ross wrote in a public Facebook post last week that her show will no longer be on KPEL. The radio station's management said Ross left on her own after something inadvertently aired in a commercial break during her show. I think there's a lot of conspiracies and things going around about it being for political reasons, said Rob Kirkpatrick, KPEL's brand manager, during an interview last week. It was not a big dramatic reason. It was very amicable. The name of Lee's show is borrowed from her weekend interview show. The show will feature news, interviews, and in-depth discussions about some of the biggest issues in Acadiana and across the nation. According to a news release from KPEL, Up Close airs from 2 to 4 p.m. on weekdays on the Town Square media station. This is the perfect time in our history to have an insightful and informed conversation on the air in Acadiana, Kirkpatrick said in a prepared statement. Bernie has played host to those conversations every morning since starting at KPEL in 1994, and will no doubt continue her long tradition of asking the questions that matter. We are lucky to have her at KPEL, and we're happy she's taking on this expanded role with the station. Lee is well known in the Acadiana broadcasting community, having talked to major newsmakers in the area in her 26 years at KPEL. She is the recipient of several honors and awards from groups including the Louisiana Association of Broadcasters and the Associated Press. The co-hosts of Acadiana's Morning News alongside Kirkpatrick. She co-hosts Acadiana's Morning News alongside Kirkpatrick. She will continue as a contributor to that show. Baton Rouge suspect believed to be in the Lafayette area. A man suspected of shoplifting and then firing a gun at a Baton Rouge Walmart is believed to be from Lafayette, according to the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office. The gunshot stemmed from a scuffle between a sheriff's deputy and 31-year-old Gabriel Nicole Francis on Monday afternoon near the Cotana Mall, authorities said. A sheriff's deputy working at the Walmart at 9350 Cotana Place had been notified of a possible shoplifting about 2 p.m., said Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Casey Rayborn Hicks. When confronting the suspect at the store's entrance with a loss prevention employee, the deputy scuffled with the suspect and caused the deputy's gun to fire, she said. A preliminary investigation indicated Francis had tried to disarm the deputy during the attempted arrest, Hicks said. No one was injured, but the gunfire led to calls for the public to avoid the area around the mall Monday afternoon. Responding authorities were unable to find Francis, who had fled on foot and possibly got into a vehicle. He's accused of attempted first-degree murder of a police officer, resisting an officer, disarming a police officer, battery of an officer, theft, and possessing a gun as a felon. Detectives have been reviewing video surveillance footage of the incident and continued searching for the man Monday afternoon. Police seek person of interest in May shooting. The New Iberia Police Department has named a person of interest in a homicide May 5th on Silver Street in New Iberia. Shaquille Daniels, 26 years old, is wanted by the police department for questioning, according to KATC TV. Anyone with information can call Iberia Crime Stoppers at 337-364-TIPS or the New Iberia Police Department at 337-369-2306. Family ID's brothers shot in New Iberia. 2 brothers involved in a shooting Sunday in New Iberia have been identified by their family. Family members said 13-year-old DeMarcus Damon Brown Jr. died following the shooting on Johnson Street in New Iberia, according to KATC TV. His brother, 18-year-old Trajan Norman, was injured in that shooting and is in stable condition in a hospital, according to police. The shooting happened at about 7 p.m. Sunday in the 500 block of Johnston Street. The investigation is ongoing. Camp Unique Dreams Foundation. Every summer, the Dreams Foundation of Acadiana hosts the greatest camp of all, Camp Unique. Camp Unique is suited for individuals with special needs. Camp Unique will be held July 13 through the 17th for ages 5 through 13 and July 20 to 24 for ages 14 and up. The fee will be $75, and the theme this year is Peace and Love. All Camp Unique sessions will be held at Lark's Acadian Village. Individuals of all ages have a blast participating at a camp that is specifically tailored to them. They get the opportunity to take part in activities such as art, fitness, karaoke, music, and dance, as well as getting a Camp Unique t-shirt and a snack every day. A highlight of Camp Unique this year will be the storytelling session of Chief Greyhawk Perkins, commented Dreams Foundation Executive Director Danielle Watkins. As a recognized expert on Native American and American colonial history, Perkins has inspired many audiences over the years, sharing tales of ancient cultures as a tribal storyteller and as a teacher of various subjects in Louisiana's school system. The registration form for Camp Unique can be found on the Dreams Foundation Acadiana website. And that would be www.dreamsfoundationaca.org. dreamsfoundationaca.org. Volunteers are also being sought at this time. So if you're interested in volunteering, please complete the application on the Dreams website under the Volunteer tab. For more information about Camp Unique, contact Danielle Watkins via email at Danielle, and it is spelled this unusual spelling of this name, it seems like DONIELLE at dreamsfoundationaca.org, or you can just call 337-962-1609. Edwards approves 3 gun rights bills. This is by Mark Ballard. Over the fierce objections of municipalities, Governor John Bel Edwards late Monday night approved legislation that effectively invalidates local and parish ordinances restricting where a person can go with a firearm. Then on Tuesday afternoon, Edwards signed a second bill that stops local officials from regulating gun sales during times of emergency. He signed a third measure on Friday. New Orleans has ordinances prohibiting guns in public buildings used for youth recreational programs, including the facilities where basketball leagues play. East Baton Rouge Parish bans firearms at all parish-owned parks and playgrounds. Lafayette and Hammond are among the municipalities that have forbidden people from carrying guns into places where families gather. House Bill 140 undoes all of that, said John Gallagher, head of the Louisiana Municipal Association. He and his staff spent much of Tuesday making and fielding calls on what these new laws will mean once they take effect on August 1st. East Baton Rouge Parish Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome noted that nearly 90,000 Americans are injured every year as a result of assaults and unintentional shootings. I have seen firsthand how an increased presence of firearms affects my community, Broome said in a statement Tuesday. Simply put, state preemption puts our community at risk. Cities and other municipalities should have the flexibility to make our own public safety decisions, especially in these uncertain times. Now, Act 299, the legislation was sponsored by House Majority Leader Representative Blake Miguez, a Republican from Arath. He said the restrictive local ordinances had become a patchwork of different laws, but the state should be under a single law. Edwards signed into law all three pro-gun bills that traveled through the legislative process together, in a process marked by limited public input because of social distancing protocols put in place by the leadership. A couple dozen gun rights advocates managed to come to the state capitol and testify in favor of the legislation. On Friday, Edwards approved a bill that allows people to carry their guns into places of worship, provided the head of that specific church agrees. Initially, House Bill 334 by Representative Brian Fontenot, a Republican from Thibodaux, would have removed a section of state law that details who can carry a gun into church and how to receive the necessary permission. Supporters argued that federal private property laws already give the owner of the church authority to decide, making the state law intrusive. But that interpretation of federal law raised the issue of just whom exactly to ask. Some churches are owned by their congregations, others by their pastors, and still others are part of a larger regional or national diocese. State Senator Cleo Fields, a Democrat from Baton Rouge, tacked on a last-minute amendment to HB 334 that struck the state law detailing how and who could carry guns into churches, synagogues, temples, and other places of worship. He then added wording that requires the administrator of a particular congregation to first give permission before anyone can enter with a firearm. House Bill 781, also by Miguez, removes the ability of the governor, chief law enforcement officers, along with local and parish government executives, from regulating the manufacture and sale of firearms and ammunition during an emergency. Miguez said gun businesses are essential in emergencies, but sometimes local authorities take matters in their own hands, such as after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, when New Orleans banned guns. State law has since been changed to forbid confiscation, but to allow local governments to suspend the local sale of firearms during a declared emergency. New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell correctly cited her authority to issue an emergency order in March as being lodged in Louisiana Homeland Security and Emergency Assistance and Disaster Act. Section 727 of the Disaster Act included wording that allows a local governmental executive to suspend the sale of firearms during the emergency. Some gun rights advocates criticized Cantrell, claiming without proof that her intent in issuing the emergency order was to confiscate guns. But of the three bills Edwards signed, it is Act 299 that will have the largest impact. Miguez said the legislation protects gun carriers who otherwise are law-abiding but unwittingly cross lines into jurisdictions where weapons are not allowed. Supporters couldn't point to a case in Louisiana where any licensed gun owner was arrested or detained for bringing a weapon into a jurisdiction that had banned them. In fact, those supporters claim such legal actions are common nationwide. The specific case cited was 7 years ago. Shanine Allen, a 27-year-old, and her family were pulled over by New Jersey police about 40 miles from their home in Philadelphia while on their way to Atlantic City in October of 2013. She told the officer that she had a handgun with hollow point bullets and a Pennsylvania-issued concealed carry permit. She was arrested on account of possessing hollow point ammunition, which causes great bodily damage. The case became a case celebre for gun rights advocates seeking a legal challenge of New Jersey's strict gun laws. When the courts upheld New Jersey's laws, then Governor Chris Christie pardoned Allen. Louisiana law provides a general framework for 11 situations where concealed guns are not allowed, such as police stations, jails, courthouses, the state capitol, airports, and schools. Local governments filled in the gaps with ordinances that covered specific scenarios unique to a given locale. For instance, state law prohibits carrying a gun in a parade or demonstration for which a permit is issued by a governmental entity. But what does that mean? Asked Karen White, the executive counsel for the Louisiana Municipal Association. Does it apply only to someone marching in the parade? What about spectators lining the route? How about someone not watching the parade, but trying to pass behind the initial lines of spectators or sitting at an outdoor table at a nearby restaurant? Some ordinances, depending on the locale, define the parade route as an public sidewalk, street, or other public passageway upon which a parade travels. Other municipalities simply forbid carrying firearms within 1,000 feet of the parade. The state law stays in place, but local ordinances are now moot. White predicted the new law would end up in court, either as an insurance liability lawsuit or as a constitutional challenge. Statistics show that the more guns around lead to more shootings. If someone is injured or killed in an area where firearms once were forbidden by a municipality, which level of government carries the liability? Also, the state constitution specifically forbids legislators from infringing on the authority of a local government with a home rule charter, which are the state's big cities. Courts could be asked if the new law is an abrogation of local police power. White said she doesn't know of any cases in the works, but these types of preemptive laws have always been subject to challenge, particularly from one of the big guys, such as Baton Rouge, Lafayette, or New Orleans. So tax breaks sought by businesses hit resistance by Sam Carlin. Tax breaks sought by business executives amid the state's recovery from the coronavirus have started to hit resistance at the state capitol, with Governor John Bel Edwards vetoing one measure to expand an incentive program, and Democrats in the legislature stalling an effort to suspend franchise taxes for some businesses. The governor, a Democrat, has largely derided the idea of expanding tax breaks to respond to the coronavirus, putting him at odds with Republican legislative leaders, including Senate President Paige Cortez of Lafayette and House Speaker Clay Schexnayder of Gonzales, who are backing efforts to award tax cuts and incentives to firms. Edwards argues the tax breaks would hurt the state's budget when revenues are declining, and some lawmakers on Tuesday said proposals to make more businesses eligible for incentives would dole out tax dollars to chains like Walmart. Republicans and business executives who set the agenda for the special session contend that businesses such as restaurants and hotels have been hammered by the pandemic, which shuttered or severely curtailed their operations. If the state doesn't prop up the private sector, the tax base will vanish regardless, they argue, a positive that won approval from the House for several bills on Tuesday to expand incentives to businesses. The bottom line is that about the small mom and pops, the rural grocery stores, said Ways and Means Committee Chair Stuart Bishop, the Lafayette Republican who brought legislation to suspend the franchise tax for some businesses. The bottom line is you can only sell so much hand sanitizer and toilet paper to keep your business going. Representative Ted James, a Baton Rouge Democrat, argued that Bishop's legislation and other tax breaks that won approval in the House on Tuesday would do little to help small businesses, and said that if the state keeps giving out taxpayer dollars to corporations, lawmakers won't have money left to fund things like infrastructure projects. Democrats have for weeks complained that Republicans are ushering through major changes to policy, including an overhaul of the civil justice system and costly tax breaks under the guise of pandemic recovery, when few are paying attention to the state capitol. Stop using the pandemic to pass bad tax policy, James said. After several bills sailed out of the House committee last week, the full House failed to pass Bishop's House Bill 17, a key part of the list of proposals set forth by the business-led task force. The bill would suspend part of the state's franchise tax until 2024, which state analysts say would cost about $10.2 million a year. The legislature got 67 votes in favor and 25 against, short of the 70 votes it needed. Bishop can still bring the bill back this session, which is slated to end June 30th. Vitalant begins testing all blood donations for antibodies to COVID-19. Today, Vitalant became the first national blood bank. Actually, that would have been June 1st. June 1st, Vitalant became the first national blood bank to test all blood donations for antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. The nation's largest independent nonprofit blood collector serving hospital patients in southern Louisiana is providing the test results to donors who complete successful blood donations, which are critically needed now. The antibody test, authorized by the Food and Drug Administration, will indicate if the donor's immune system has produced antibodies to the virus, regardless of whether they ever showed symptoms. It is possible that over time, the broad use of antibody tests and clinical follow-up will provide the medical community with more information on whether a person who has recovered from COVID-19 is at a lower risk of infection, and if so, for how long. For more information, visit vitalant.org COVID-free. That's Vitalant, so that would be vitalant.org/COVID-free. Donors are urged to give blood as soon as possible. Appointments are strongly recommended. Visit vitalant.org or call 877-258-4825. That's 877-258-4825. In this day in history, today is June 17th, the 169th day of 2020. There are 197 days left in the year. Today's highlight in history: on June 17th, 1972, President Richard Nixon's eventual downfall began with the arrest of 5 burglars inside the Democratic headquarters in Washington, D.C.'s Watergate complex. In 1775, the Revolutionary War Battle of Bunker Hill resulted in a costly victory for the British, who suffered heavy losses. In 1928, Amelia Earhart embarked on a transatlantic flight from Newfoundland to Wales with pilots Wilmer Stultz and Lewis Gordon, becoming the first woman to make the trip as a passenger. In 1930, President Herbert Hoover signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which boosted U.S. tariffs in historically high levels, prompting foreign retaliation. In 1933, the Kansas City Massacre took place outside Union Station in Kansas City, Missouri, as a group of gunmen attacked law enforcement officers escorting federal prisoner Frank Nash. 4 of the officers were killed along with Nash. In 1953, U.S. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas stayed the execution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, originally set for the next day, the couple's 14th wedding anniversary. They were put to death, however, on June 19th. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan announced the retirement of Chief Justice Warren Burger, who was succeeded by William Rehnquist. Here's a good one. In 1994, after leading police on a slow-speed chase on Southern California freeways, O.J. Simpson was arrested and charged with murder in the slayings of his ex-wife, Nicole, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. Simpson was later acquitted in a criminal trial, but held liable in a civil trial. In 2009, President Barack Obama extended some benefits to same-sex partners of federal employees. Five years ago, 9 people were shot to death in a historic African-American church in Charleston, South Carolina. Suspect Dylan Roof was arrested the following morning. Roof was convicted of federal hate crimes and sentenced to death. He later pleaded guilty to state murder charges and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Today's birthdays. Let's see. Barry Manilow is 77 years old. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is 77. Comedian Joe Piscopo is 69. Let's see. Actor Thomas Hayden Church is 60. Greg Kinnear is 57. Olympic gold medal speed skater Dan Jensen is 55. Rhythm and blues singer Kevin Thornton is 51. And tennis player Venus Williams is 40. So our thought for the day, one has 2 duties: to be worried and not to be worried. That's by E.M. Forster, a British author from 1879 to 1970. That's easier said than done, right? So our horoscope for today. This is, again, June 17th, 2020. Gemini, you need a pick-me-up. Fix up your surroundings to reflect what makes you happy. Focus your attention on something that will keep you up to date physically and intellectually. Cancer, changing the way you earn your living or how you deal with responsibilities will give you the ammunition you need to venture down an exciting path. Leo, get the facts before you sign up for something unfamiliar. Turn a negative situation into a powerful new beginning. Go over every detail and take care of stressful situations yourself. Virgo, you'll thrive by learning and enhancing your skills and techniques. The changes you implement into everyday routine will help you explore new possibilities. Leave the past behind you. Libra, don't let someone's negativity bring you down. Offer a brighter view of a situation you cannot change, and you'll feel good while bringing a smile to someone else's face. Scorpio, you'll begin to see things differently. An emotional situation will allow you to make a move in a positive direction. It's time to do things your way. Sagittarius, refuse to give in to temptation. Do what's right and best for you, and you won't have any regrets. Take better care of your health and nurture meaningful relationships. Capricorn, make changes at home that will add to your comfort and convenience. Spending more time with the people you live with should be rewarding, not difficult. Add to your entertainment center. Aquarius, it's up to you to call the shots. If you want to change, do what suits you. Letting someone talk you into something that isn't your thing won't make you happy. Pisces, change should be made for the right reasons. Don't let your emotions dictate your next move. A practical approach will bring the best results. Avoid a petty argument. Aries, take care of matters physically. Too much talk and not enough action will get you into trouble. How you reach out to help others will make a difference and boost your reputation. Taurus, your emotions will help you find what you need to maintain balance in your life. Discipline will be required, but in the end, you will be happy with the results you achieve. Okay, everybody, remember that the horoscope is an entertainment feature. It is not based on scientific fact. That's, I think, pretty much it. Just remember that if you're feeling any stress, fear, and anxiety about the uncertainty surrounding our public health emergency, there is a special Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline. It's 866-310-7977. All trained counselors are available 24/7, and the calls are confidential. So if you're feeling overwhelmed at this time and need someone to talk to, don't be afraid to call 866-310-7977. That's all I have for you today. It seemed to go pretty quickly today, Matt. Matt, are you there?
I am here, and yeah, that you actually wrapped it right on time. So it's right at the 56-minute mark.
That's always my challenge every day as I'm going through the horoscopes, is to make sure I end perfectly on time.
Well, you did a great job with time, and thank you again for reading the news this morning, and I hope we'll hear
As
from you.
always, Matt, thank you.
Thank you so much.